Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever gazed at the shimmering stars of the entertainment world and thought, they have it all, the glitz, the glamour, the adoration? It seems like a dream. But what if I told you that beneath that dazzling exterior lies a reality fraught with challenges, loneliness, and a relentless quest for perfection? They say perfection is the goal, that once you have it, once you look the part, act the part, speak the part, everything falls into place. You'll be loved more, respected more, celebrated more. That's the promise the world gives, especially to those in the public eye. Because when you're in the spotlight, the pressure isn't just to be excellent. It's to be flawless, untouchable, impeccable, and in the beginning, it might even feel exciting to be admired, to be seen, to be applauded. But what they don't tell you is that every applause comes with an expectation. Every compliment carries a silent contract. Stay this way, don't change, don't show us your bad days, don't disappoint us. So you do your best, you build a version of yourself that everyone else wants. You dress up, you smile, you keep your voice calm, you act like nothing gets to you, you rehearse how to be perfect, and slowly that version becomes your mask. Behind the scenes, though, the story is very different. Behind every perfect photo is a person who had to take 20 shots before posting one. Behind every smile is a silent question, was that good enough? Behind the scenes is a heart weighed down by the burden of always being okay, even when you're not. You start hiding your pain because the world has no room for messy, no room for broken, no room for real. Fame doesn't just magnify your gifts, it magnifies your flaws. It doesn't just showcase your highlights, it exposes your missteps. And in a world where public opinion can turn with a single tweet, a misunderstood moment, or an edited video, the fear of being seen for who you really are can be paralyzing. You start wondering, who am I if I stop pretending? Will they still love me if I stop performing? Will I still matter if I admit that I'm struggling? This is the cost of the illusion of perfection. It steals your rest, it steals your peace, and slowly it starts to steal your identity. Because when your worth becomes tied to applause, silence feels like rejection. When your value is based on validation, any criticism feels like failure, and what's worse, the world encourages it. We live in a culture that rewards performance more than authenticity. That praises appearance over substance, that celebrates curated perfection over quiet honesty. And for those who are constantly in the public eye, it's a never-ending cycle of pleasing people, avoiding judgment, and chasing a standard that keeps moving. You feel it most in the quiet moments, the ones when you're off stage, when the lights are off, when your phone is silent. That's when the emptiness creeps in, because what happens when you've given the world everything it asked for, and still feel like it's not enough? That's the part we don't talk about enough. The cost of keeping up the illusion isn't just emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual, it drains you, because pretending to be perfect is exhausting, and at some point the body keeps the score. You get tired, not just physically, but soul. Tired of being what people want instead of who you really are. Tired of hiding behind filters and quotes that don't reflect what you're really feeling. Tired of being praised for a version of you that isn't even real. But here's the truth. Perfection was never the goal. We made it the goal. We let the world convince us that we had to meet its expectations to be worthy of love, acceptance, or respect. But real connection doesn't come from perfection. It comes from vulnerability, from honesty, from people seeing your scars and saying, "Me too." Because when you take off the mask, you give others permission to do the same. When you stop pretending, you make space for real healing. And when you finally embrace your imperfections, you'll realize they were never the problem. They were the proof that you're human, that you feel, that you've lived. You don't have to be polished to be powerful. You don't have to be perfect to be valuable. And you don't have to be approved by everyone to walk in your purpose. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth about where you really are. To admit that the illusion of perfection is just that, an illusion, that behind the edited photos and the poised appearances is a person who's still learning, still growing, still healing, and that's okay. Peace doesn't live in perfection. It lives in authenticity, and authenticity requires courage. It takes strength to say, "This is me, unfiltered, unedited, unapologetically real." But that's where your freedom lies. Not in the applause, not in the spotlight, but in the quiet knowing that you are enough, even when you don't meet the world's impossible standards. You don't need everyone to get you. You don't need every post to go viral. You don't need to win every argument or be liked by every person. What you need is peace, the kind that comes when you lay down the pressure to impress and pick up the permission to just be. So let them talk. Let them expect, let them criticize. The world will always find something to say, but your worth, it was never in their words. It was never in their hands. It was never in the image they wanted you to become. It's in your soul, it's in your truth, it's in your decision to stop living for likes and start living with purpose. The illusion of perfection is heavy, but freedom, that starts when you put it down. When you take a deep breath and whisper to yourself, I'm enough as I am, still growing, still healing, still worthy, that's the beginning of real peace, and no amount of fame will ever compare to that. They say perfection is the goal, that once you look the part, act the part, speak the part, everything will fall into place, that if you appear flawless enough, polished enough, then you'll be worthy of love, respect, and admiration. And it sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Almost like a dream, because who doesn't want to be accepted? Who doesn't want to be enough? That's what the world promises. If you become what they want, they will embrace you. But what they don't tell you is the price you'll have to pay to keep that illusion alive. In the beginning, it feels exciting. People notice you. They admire your work, your appearance, your words. You feel seen. You feel valued. You begin to build this version of yourself that fits the image everyone loves. But with every praise comes an unspoken contract. Stay this way. Don't mess up. Don't show weakness. Don't break the character you've created for them. Suddenly, you're no longer just living, you're performing not just on stage but in life, and the pressure grows louder each day. You're expected to look perfect, act perfect, speak perfectly, and always smile, no matter what's going on inside. You feel like if you let people see the real you, the tired you, the confused you, the broken you, they might walk away, they might turn on you, so you hide. You cover the pain with makeup, with captions, with carefully curated photos and rehearsed answers. You smile even when your soul is tired, but behind every perfect post is a person who took 30 photos before choosing one. Behind every composed face is someone who sometimes cries in silence, afraid to admit they don't have it all together. Behind every viral video is someone battling self-doubt, trying to be strong enough to face another day of expectations, because when your value feels tied to performance, silence feels like failure. Rest feels like laziness, and being real feels like a risk. You wake up asking, who do I have to be today so people will still approve of me? And that question, it steals your peace. You begin to lose yourself in the image. The lines between your real self and your public persona blur. You don't know who you are without the applause. You don't know how to rest without feeling guilty. You start to wonder if people love you or just the version of you that you present. And yet, we keep going, we keep pretending, because this world doesn't always make space for realness. It glorifies the flawless, it rewards those who appear unshaken, it praises the highlight reel but ignores the behind, the scenes battles. And for those who are constantly in the public eye, that spotlight can quickly become a prison, a beautiful, shining prison where everyone sees you, but no one really sees you. What we don't talk about enough is the mental and emotional toll of carrying that illusion. It's not just tiring, it's soul-crushing, because you're not just battling external opinions, you're wrestling with internal doubts. You begin to question if your worth is only as strong as your latest post, your most recent success, your trending moment. And when the likes slow down, when the applause fades, when people start expecting more, you feel like you're disappearing. But here's something we need to say more often. You don't have to be perfect to be valuable. You don't have to meet every standard to be worthy. You don't need to keep up the image just to be loved. The version of you that breaks down sometimes, that doesn't have all the answers, that's still learning and growing, that version deserves love too. That version is enough too. Perfection doesn't connect people. Vulnerability does. It's not the flawless stories that touch hearts. It's the honest ones, the ones that say, hey, I've been there too. The ones that admit, I'm still figuring it out. The ones that remind others that it's okay not to have it all together, because when you're real, you give others permission to be real too, and that's where healing starts, that's where peace begins. You see, peace isn't found in applause. Peace lives in authenticity, in being able to sit with yourself and say, I like who I am becoming, even if I'm not there yet. Peace is choosing rest over performance. It's letting go of the need to impress and embracing the joy of just being. You don't have to carry the weight of perfection anymore. You're allowed to be human, and that takes courage. It takes strength to show up without the mask. To let people see the raw, unedited version of your heart. To admit that sometimes you struggle, you doubt, you cry. But that's also when people will love you the most. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. They'll see your truth, they'll hear your heart, and they'll realize they're not alone. So stop chasing an image, stop exhausting yourself trying to be everything for everyone, stop performing. The world may not always understand your truth, but that doesn't make it less worthy. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to win everyone's approval. What you need is peace, peace with yourself, peace with your pace, peace with the process, because the illusion of perfection. It's heavy, it's lonely, it promises love but delivers pressure. But when you lay it down, when you let go of who you think you have to be and embrace who you really are, that's when the healing begins. That's when you discover the kind of love that doesn't require performance. That's when you find peace that doesn't fade when the spotlight turns off. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real. Honest, free, and that version of you, the one that doesn't pretend, that chooses peace over pressure, that dares to be seen as you are. That version is powerful beyond words. Let them talk. Let them judge. Let them expect what they will. You don't owe the world perfection. You owe yourself peace, and that starts the moment you stop chasing the illusion and start walking in the truth of who you really are. They say being known is a blessing, that the more people who recognize your face, repeat your name, or follow your life, the more fulfilled you must feel, that the lights, the applause, the compliments, they must fill your heart to the brim. And for a while, maybe they do. In the early stages, when everything is new and exciting, the attention feels like affirmation. You think, I made it, I'm seen, I'm appreciated. You smile for the cameras. You wave at the crowd, you post the highlights, and you hope that the joy on the outside will eventually match what you feel on the inside. But with time, you begin to notice something strange, that the more people there are around you, the lonelier it gets. That the louder the crowd becomes, the quieter your soul feels. You start realizing that being surrounded doesn't always mean being understood, that you can be celebrated on stage, but still cry behind closed doors. That you can have thousands of followers, but not know who to call when your heart feels heavy. No one really prepares you for that kind of loneliness, the kind that shows up even when you're dressed in your best. The kind that lingers even in moments of success. The kind that makes you question, if so many people love the idea of me, why do I still feel unseen? It's a quiet kind of ache. Not because you're ungrateful, not because you don't appreciate the blessings, but because there's a difference between being watched and being truly known. When the spotlight is on you, people often see what they want to see. They see the confidence, the grace, the achievements. They see the wins, the milestones, the perfect angles, but they don't see the person who stays up late at night battling anxiety. They don't see the one who feels the pressure to always say the right thing, be the right person, deliver the perfect answer. They don't see the silence after the camera stops rolling, the moments when you sit alone and wonder if you're still loved when you're no longer impressive. It's easy to feel forgotten in those moments, because while the world keeps scrolling, liking, and commenting, you're left with yourself, and sometimes the version of yourself that you face in the mirror feels unfamiliar. Like a stranger who's been trained to perform so well that they forgot how to simply exist, how to be human, how to be vulnerable. You smile for everyone, but no one asks how your heart is. You show up for people, but wonder who would show up for you if you stopped shining. You give and give and give, because that's what's expected, but you quietly wonder when it's your turn to receive, when it's your turn to be held, to be heard, to be understood, not as a name, not as a brand, not as a figure, but as a soul. And that loneliness isn't always visible. It hides behind makeup, behind laughter, behind well-written captions and cheerful interviews, because saying, "I'm lonely," feels like weakness, especially when the world sees you as someone who has it all. It almost feels like a betrayal to admit you're struggling when you're supposed to be grateful, so you keep it in, you convince yourself it's just a phase, you drown the silence with noise, you distract yourself with work, with accomplishments, with more things to do, until one day you realize. You're tired, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. There comes a moment when you start longing for something deeper, something real. You crave conversations that don't revolve around your image. You long for people who don't care about what you wear or what you achieve, but care about how you really are. You want friendships that are safe enough to say, "I'm not okay." You want space to be vulnerable without being judged or misunderstood. And that kind of connection, it's rare, because in the spotlight, trust becomes a luxury. You're constantly filtering your words, watching your actions, guarding your space. You don't know who's genuinely for you and who just wants access to your life. So you stay quiet. You build walls, and those walls, they protect you, but they also isolate you. It's strange how the very thing you once prayed for recognition, success, visibility, and sometimes become the thing that makes you feel most alone. Because fame doesn't promise intimacy, it doesn't guarantee connection. In fact, it often demands that you give so much of yourself to the public, you have nothing left for the private. And if you're not careful, you start believing that loneliness is just the price you pay for living a life in the light. But it doesn't have to be that way, because while the spotlight can feel isolating, it can also be a place of influence. A place to speak truth, a place to be real, a place to tell others, even up here, even with all this, there are still days when I feel alone. And in that honesty, you create space for others to breathe, to feel seen, to feel less alone in their own silent battles. Maybe that's where the healing begins, not in denying the loneliness, but in acknowledging it, in saying out loud, "Yes, I am grateful, but I'm also human, and sometimes I need to be reminded that I don't have to carry it all alone." Maybe it starts with reaching out, letting your guard down with people you trust, asking for help, admitting your need, because no amount of fame should cost you your need for genuine connection. You weren't meant to walk through life pretending you're okay just to maintain an image. You weren't designed to be strong all the time. You're allowed to need love. You're allowed to need rest. You're allowed to need real, honest soul, deep connection. And if you find that you've been performing for so long that you've forgotten what that feels like, I want to remind you, you can start again. You can seek out people who love you, not just your image. You can create space for yourself to be whole, to be real, to be known. Because the spotlight may shine on your achievements, but your soul shines brightest when it is seen, not for what it has done, but for who it truly is. So even in the loneliness, you are not lost. Even in the silence, you are still worthy. Even when you feel unseen, your life matters, your voice matters, you matter. And maybe the bravest thing you can do today is not post, not perform, not impress, but simply allow yourself to be human. To let someone in, to say, "I need connection," because underneath the fame, underneath the lights, underneath the expectations, is a heart that just wants to be loved, not for the show, but for the soul. And that kind of love, that kind of connection, that's what truly lasts, that's what truly heals. They say social media connects us, that it brings people closer, that it gives a voice to the voiceless and a stage to those who never had one. And that's true. It gives you the power to reach hearts from miles away. It lets you share your story, your truth, your talent with the world. It offers a kind of freedom we never had before, a freedom to express, to inspire, to connect. But what they don't always tell you is that this freedom comes with a price, a silent cost, because what starts as a place to share slowly becomes a place where you compare, compete, and sometimes Lose yourself, you open your phone and scroll. At first, it's innocent. You like a post, you leave a comment, you share a photo, but little by little, the line between real life and online life begins to blur. You start noticing how someone else's life looks more exciting, more beautiful, more perfect. Their vacations, their families, their bodies, their careers, it all looks so effortless. And even when you're doing well, even when your life is full of blessings, there's this whisper in your heart that says, "Why don't I feel as happy as they look?" You post something and then you wait. You check the likes, count the comments, watch the views. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, but it does, because deep down you wonder if anyone cares. You wonder if your voice is loud enough, if your post is good enough, if you are enough. And before you know it, your worth starts to feel like it depends on numbers, followers, engagement, validation from strangers who see only fragments of your life. And that's where it gets dangerous. Because social media was never supposed to define us. It was meant to be a tool, not a mirror, but now it reflects back this image of who we think we should be, instead of who we truly are. It becomes a highlight reel of other people's best moments, and we start comparing that to our behind the scenes. We start filtering not just our photos, but our lives. We show the joy, but not the pain. We show the celebration, but not the struggle. We show the wins, but not the waiting. Sometimes we even measure our success by how shareable our life looks, as if a beautiful moment only matters when it's captured. As if a quiet day only has value when it's aesthetic. And slowly, we start living for the post instead of living in the moment. We forget how to be present because we're always performing. We start asking ourselves, is this picture worthy? Will people like this? Should I post now or later for more reach? And we don't even realize how much of our joy we've outsourced to an app. And it's not just about the pictures or the posts. It's also the pressure to stay relevant, to always say something smart, look put together, be inspirational, the pressure to never mess up, never offend, never fall, because the moment you do, there are eyes watching. People ready to judge, ready to cancel, ready to tear down what you've spent years building, all over a single misstep, and that fear, it paralyzes, it makes you second, guess your words, doubt your thoughts, hide your truth. You start curating not just your feed, but your personality. You shrink yourself to fit in. You edit your voice to match the trend. You wear masks so people will approve, but deep down you feel it, the ache of inauthenticity. The longing to be free, to say what's really on your heart, to stop chasing approval and just be real. But being real on social media is risky, because people don't always respond well to vulnerability. They scroll past the honest posts. They sometimes criticize the raw truth, and it hurts. It makes you want to retreat, to protect yourself, to keep everything surface level. And yet, at the same time, you long for someone to see past the filters and say, I get it. I've been there too. Because as much as we are connected, we are also more isolated than ever. We have more followers but fewer real friends. We have more likes but less peace. We have more access to each other but less time for one another. And sometimes what we really need isn't another post, it's a person, a real conversation, a safe space, a warm hug, a heart that listens. There are days when you want to unplug, to disappear from the noise. To remember who you are without the opinions of the world, but even in those moments, the pressure to stay visible pulls you back in, because silence on social media sometimes feels like failure, like you've disappeared, like you're no longer relevant, and so you stay, you keep posting, you keep performing, all while silently hoping someone will notice the parts of you that you're not sharing. But here's the truth, you are not your posts. You are not your likes, you are not your follower count, you are not your stories, your feed, your reach. You are more than an algorithm, more than a brand, more than a digital image. You are a soul. A human, a heart that beats, breaks, loves, and heals. And the beauty is, you get to choose how you show up. You get to set your boundaries. You get to decide what parts of your life you share, and which parts you protect. You are allowed to be private, you are allowed to step away, you are allowed to rest, because social media may never stop spinning, but you don't have to spin with it, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to chase approval from people who don't even know your story. The ones who truly matter, the ones who love the real you, don't need a post to know your worth. They see you, they believe in you. With or without a screen, so take your time, breathe, be still. Go back to the things that ground you. Talk to God, hug your family, laugh with friends, create without the need for validation. And when you return online, if and when you choose to, you'll come back from a place of peace, not pressure, because the power of social media isn't in how loud you are. It's in how true you are, in how honest, how kind, how intentional you choose to be. You don't have to play the game. You don't have to be who they expect. You just have to be you, and that's more than enough. There comes a point in life where you look in the mirror and wonder, who have I become? You start to ask yourself, is this really me, or is this the version of me the world wanted to see? It doesn't happen overnight. It's slow, almost unnoticeable, one decision at a time, one compromise after another. Until one day you wake up and realize you've been performing for so long that you've forgotten who you are underneath the roles, the expectations, the applause. It starts with good intentions. You want to please, to serve, to inspire. You want to do what's right. You want to become the best version of yourself. So you follow advice, you listen to voices, you shape yourself around what people expect, and that's okay, until it isn't. Until the pressure to be what everyone else wants begins to silence the voice inside you, until the identity that once felt clear becomes buried under layers of approval, opinion, and obligation. And when your identity becomes tied to performance, to image, to success, suddenly you're not living from a place of authenticity, you're surviving from a place of performance. Every step you take feels calculated. Every word you speak is filtered. You're no longer asking, what do I want? But rather, what do they want from me? And that's when it starts to hurt, not all at once, but deep like a slow erosion. The kind of ache that doesn't scream, it whispers, a quiet discomfort, a disconnect between who you truly are and who you've become. You feel it most in moments of stillness, when there's no camera, no audience, no performance to maintain. Just you, alone. And in that silence, the question echoes again, who am I really? Without the applause, without the makeup, without the perfect answers. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when you're not trying to impress or fit in or lead? The truth is, when the world praises your mask, it's easy to become addicted to wearing it, because it works, it gets results, it brings validation, but it also distances you from your truest self, and the longer you wear it, the heavier it becomes. You smile, but it's not your smile. You speak, but the words feel rehearsed. You show up, but it feels like a version of you is missing. You begin to notice it in the little things. You start laughing less. You feel tired even when you've done nothing. You don't enjoy what you used to love. You're surrounded by people, yet you feel invisible, because somewhere along the way, in trying to become everything for everyone, you've stopped being you. And what makes it even harder is that most people won't notice, because the image still looks intact, the outside still shines, but inside something feels lost, and no amount of success or recognition can fill that gap. Because identity isn't about what you achieve, it's about who you are at the core. You can be celebrated and still feel empty. You can be admired and still feel unknown, because being loved for a version of you that isn't real never satisfies the soul. It only deepens the hunger to be truly seen, to be known and still loved, not for the version you present, but for the person you truly are. But rediscovering that person takes courage. It means peeling back the layers. It means facing the parts of you you've buried for the sake of acceptance. It means saying no to things that no longer align, even if people don't understand. It means choosing truth over image, even when it costs you approval. And yes, it will cost you, because not everyone will be comfortable with the real you. Some people like the performance better. Some love the edited version more. But freedom doesn't come without sacrifice. And sometimes that sacrifice is the fear of disappointing others, so you can finally stop disappointing yourself. You have to be willing to let go of the version of you that was built for applause, so you can embrace the one that was designed for peace. Because the truth is, your worth was never supposed to be up for debate. It wasn't meant to be measured by trends, by followers, by comments. You were created with value before anyone ever validated you. Your identity is not a costume you put on, it's a calling you live out, and it starts by coming home to yourself, coming home to your real voice, the one that trembles when it speaks truth. Coming home to your real desires, not the ones imposed by others, but the ones planted in your heart by purpose. Coming home to your real self, the one that doesn't need to perform to be loved. You don't need to be louder, more beautiful, more impressive. You just need to be you, because that's what the world truly needs. Not another copy, not another performance, but a soul that's honest, a presence that's rooted, a person who knows who they are even when no one else claps. And yes, you will have days where you forget, days when the pressure feels too much, days when you're tempted to go back to the mask, but don't. Remind yourself, peace is found in authenticity, power is found in vulnerability. Identity is found in truth. You were never meant to fit into the mold. You were never called to shrink yourself for someone else's comfort. Your story, your journey, your process, it's yours for a reason. Own it, protect it, live it fully, because when you finally walk in your true identity, something beautiful happens. The pressure lifts, the noise fades, and what's left is clarity, confidence, and a deep, quiet peace that no applause can give and no criticism can take away. So, if you are in that place today, unsure of who you are, exhausted by the need to please, pause, breathe, go back to the beginning, strip away everything that isn't real, listen to that still, small voice inside you. The one that says, you are already enough, and start from there, not from pressure, not from fear, not from performance, but from truth, from peace, from the undeniable, unshakable identity of being whole, just as you are. There's a kind of peace this world can't give, not the peace that comes from everything going right, or from applause, or from a full calendar, not the kind of peace that depends on circumstances or achievements. No, this kind of peace is different. It's quiet, it's deep, and it doesn't come overnight. It's a journey. At first, we think peace is found in success, that if we just work hard enough, accomplish more, reach our goals, we'll finally feel it. That stillness in our hearts. So we chase, we build, we climb, we perform, we put our heads down and push through the exhaustion, thinking the reward will be worth it, and when we finally get there, we smile for the camera, post the moment, hear the applause, and still feel the emptiness we thought we had outrun, so we try something else. Maybe peace comes from people, from relationships, from being loved, chosen, seen. We give, we serve, we pour our hearts out. And yes, there's beauty in love, deep, healing beauty, but people are imperfect, and sometimes the very ones we love the most don't know how to love us back, or they leave, or they hurt us, and the peace we built on their presence suddenly disappears when they're gone. Then we think, maybe peace is found in control. If we can just keep everything in order, keep everyone happy, keep life predictable and manageable, maybe then we'll be okay. So we plan, we micromanage. We carry the weight of everyone's expectations, believing that if we just hold it all together, we won't fall apart, but life doesn't work that way. It shifts, it surprises us, it interrupts the script. And control, no matter how tight we grip it, slips through our fingers like sand, and that's when we start to realize, maybe peace doesn't come from outside, maybe it's not something we find in the world. Maybe it's something we discover within, but finding it means letting go of the noise, letting go of the roles we've played for too long, letting go of the fear of disappointing others. It means sitting in silence, not to punish ourselves, but to finally hear what our hearts have been trying to say all along, that we're tired, that we're hurting, that we've been carrying burdens that were never ours to carry, and that deep down we're longing for rest. Real rest, not just sleep, not just vacations, but soul rest, the kind of rest that quiets the overthinking, that untangles the knots in our spirit, that reminds us we're loved even when we're not producing, that we're worthy even when we're not performing, and that kind of peace doesn't show up with fanfare, it doesn't make a big entrance, it comes softly, often in the quiet mornings when no one's watching. in the stillness of prayer, in the slow moments when you step outside and just breathe. It comes when you finally stop striving and start surrendering, when you realize you don't have to prove your worth, you just have to be. Peace begins to take root when you stop needing to be everything for everyone, when you learn to say no without guilt, when you choose boundaries not to keep people out, but to protect what matters most inside you. When you stop chasing what's flashy and start choosing what's fulfilling. It comes when you make room for healing, for grace, for honesty, when you're not afraid to admit that you're still figuring things out, that you don't have all the answers, that sometimes you doubt, sometimes you fall, sometimes you feel lost, and in that honesty you realize you're not broken, you're just becoming, because inner peace doesn't mean you have it all together. It means you're at peace even when you don't. It's knowing who you are and being okay with who you're not. It's living from a place of truth, not pressure, from purpose, not performance, and sometimes finding peace means walking away from the noise, from unhealthy patterns, from people who only love the version of you that stays small and silent. It means choosing growth even when it's uncomfortable, choosing healing even when it's messy. Choosing you, not in a selfish way, but in a sacred way, because you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't lead others if you've lost yourself. It's not always easy. There will be days when the old patterns call you back. When fear knocks on your door, when you feel like you're not doing enough, not being enough, and in those moments, peace becomes a choice, a decision to trust, to stay grounded, to return to what anchors you over and over again. And slowly, your life starts to change, not on the outside, but within. You begin to breathe differently, speak differently, move differently. You stop rushing, you start listening, you become more present, more aware, more aligned. You laugh more freely, you cry without shame, you say yes when you mean it, and no when you need to. You stop performing and start living. In your spirit, it feels lighter, not because life is perfect, but because you're not pretending anymore. And that's the real freedom, that's the real peace, to live honestly, to love deeply, to be okay with being in process, to know that even when life is loud, your soul can be still, that even when storms rage around you, there's a quiet center within you that no one can take away. That peace, it's already inside you, waiting, whispering. You just have to make room for it. You just have to listen. And when you do, when you finally hear that still, small voice, it will feel like coming home. Not to a place, not to a person, but to yourself. In a world that celebrates perfection, let us remember the beauty of imperfection. Let us value authenticity over image, connection over admiration, and mental well-being over public approval. For true peace is not found in the spotlight, but in the quiet moments of self-acceptance. Thank you.